Have you ever felt caught between conflicting values, like following through on your commitments to other people versus maybe connecting with your family? I just finished this podcast episode that dives into this very topic. We look at how mental inflexibility can really impact your family relationships and how you can better navigate those specific challenges. This is going to really resonate with those parents who are feeling overwhelmed and conflicted right now, myself included. Welcome back, my friends, to episode number 159, Flexibility versus Rigidity: How Mental Inflexibility Damages Family Ties. I have been thinking a lot about this, and I really try to do podcast episodes that will resonate with the audience very specifically. And if it's something that I struggle with, and I'm seeing, like I mentioned a lot of times before, in my clients specifically, and this is just coming up again and again. So I had a lot of stories for you today to explain what this is and what you can do to improve your life and your mental health and wellness. So let me jump into a story that kind of encapsulates all of that. Recently, I had a few different clients talk to me about homeschooling and medication. And I actually have had the same conversation come up probably 30 times in the last 6 months, at least, with my clients. This is what it looks like. There's this conversation about how they are really depressed. They're struggling with anxiety, with depression, with confidence, with having joy at all in their lives. When we explore it, we discover that it comes down to one big thing. And for everyone, it's a little bit different. But for these different clients, they talk about how homeschooling is so challenging for them, how it's really difficult to enjoy their lives. And it all swirls around this thing. But then they quickly followed up by, I am not interested in not homeschooling. I know it's the right thing for us. I'm going to do it. And this is not at all a judgment. Like, I'm not sitting there saying, oh, you shouldn't do it. But they put so much pressure on themselves. And they often say that they hear so much feedback from others that they should or shouldn't do something. And there's all of these feelings wrapped up into it. I'll go into that later. But the point here is that they have very strong views, very rigid views on how they should and should not do something. And it's completely impacting their life. Homeschooling was one of those things. Another thing that often comes up that people are very rigid about, and I even struggle with this sometimes, is medication. Typically, I do not want to be on anything that I would be dependent on. That being said, there was a time that I was on medication because I felt like things were getting out of my control, and I wanted to remember what baseline was like and what that used to feel like. There's several other examples I want to share, but before I jump into those, I'm going to quickly remind you about our coming courses. One is called Ignite Your Life. One is Find Your Focus. I have both business courses and wellness courses, actually 7 of them that will likely all be released this coming year of 2025, or maybe a little bit after, that are both business courses and wellness courses. One side of that are courses specifically for those that want to build a passive income and have more flexibility and grow that the right way and quickly. And then the other side, those wellness courses, are for people that feel like, hey, you know what? I need those extra tools. I need a therapist to give me their best information. I need all of those things just delivered in a simple way, in bite-sized pieces, that every day for 3 months, I can sit down and do the work, and I can work on my marriage. That will be one class. I can work on my parenting. That's another one, another course, or my personal growth. So those are for maybe those higher functioning people that are ready to do things on their own, but they just want it from a reliable source. You can find it on fulfillmenttherapy.org, so go check it out. And I have had so much fun creating those. And actually, this episode is a result of me jumping in probably too much with those courses. And I'll explain more in a minute. All right, let's go back to the topic today. So again, that flexibility versus that rigidity. The thing that is difficult about this is that often two values are conflicting. I'm going to share a quick personal example. flexible. Recently, I have been very busy with work. It's not usually this busy, but this summer I mostly took off to be with my kids because family and family connection is so important to me, and traditions and being a present mom during the summer. Like, I want to do that as much as I possibly can. I still worked with some clients and I worked before they woke up in the morning, but I really just tried to be available when they were home. The consequence of that is that I had a lot of work waiting for me this fall, and a new team and new platforms, many things happening, the company growing very quickly, and feeling a bit overwhelmed, to say the least. And I really do what I can to manage that. I really practice self-care. I do all of these things. And yet I'm struggling sleeping, which I don't usually struggle with. I'm having all of these thoughts that I'm constantly trying to organize, like this mental overload, like so it's hard to fall asleep. And then I wake up early at 3:30 every day to try to, my brain is already on high alert trying to organize everything still. And even with very focused work throughout the day, I still am scrambling. And I've been doing this for several weeks and I'm getting more headaches now. I'm getting more irritable. I'm noticing that other areas in my life are starting to suffer. My marriage, my parenting, nothing terribly, but enough that it's starting to feel unrealistic. You think I would have noticed a little bit earlier. I did, but you know how you feel like sometimes there's an imbalance and that's okay for a small period of time as long as you can readjust and as long as you communicate. Well, in this case, it's starting to pass that point. And I've noticed that the reason it feels so difficult is because I so badly want to show up as a business owner, as a boss. I want to be reliable. I want to follow through on my commitments to my team because I value them so much and I want to thank them for what they've done by creating these things that will help them and by showing up in the way that I promised that I would. But the other side of that coin is that I'm not showing up to my family. I'm not showing up in a present way to them. And I'm very distracted and often a little bit irritable trying to manage all of that. I'm super exhausted by the time the day is done. So that is one experience. So again, that desire to have that family connection versus being a good employer and delivering on the things that I said that I would deliver on. And there's a lot of layers to that, but that's the watered down version of it. Okay. Mental inflexibility can really impact mental health and family dynamics. So remember when I talked about homeschooling or even medication, there's another quick story I have of my daughter. She really wants to get a car right now. She's been waiting for a long time and trying to save up. And she really wants to go on another school trip with her performing arts group. And she's been saving up for that too. But she also knows that college is just around the corner and things are starting to fall apart around her. The other commitments that she's agreed to are starting to fall by the wayside. And it starts to cause this spiral in her life, like this downward spiral when it's so rigid that you're not willing to do a give or take or reassess. And we all do that. This is not just about my daughter or my clients or me. It's something that we all do. So are you able to balance your professional commitments or maybe your commitments to your family? Or are you in that space that you're completely exhausted and stressed out because of that rigidity that is not for your benefit or your family's benefit? So in plain and simple terms, I'll tell you what mental inflexibility is. This is when you're stuck in your ways and you have a hard time changing your thoughts or your behaviors, and it leads you to stick to the same routines or beliefs even when they aren't working for you or your family. So like my example, I don't care if everybody's mad at me and I'm not a great parent or a great spouse. I have decided that I'm going to do homeschooling. And I'm not telling you to not do homeschooling. I'm just saying explore that flexibility. Another thing might be like, no, I will never take medication. It's terrible for everybody. It's like the demon. And obviously I'm dramatizing it a little bit. But instead recognizing, okay, if I take medication, will my quality of life be better for both me and my family, even though it's something that I hoped I'd never have to do when I've already tried the other routes, like counseling or ruling out other things like hormone imbalances or whatever. And you've done other work like tools and resources and nothing's changing. Like, again, exploring those things. Or maybe it's giving up the idea of having a car right now or having that trip, whatever it is, reevaluating it and talking to people. And I'm going to go through those steps in just a minute. It's like when you try to avoid those uncomfortable feelings or thoughts, and it can make it tough to adapt to those new situations or those challenges. And that causes more stress and more conflict in your relationships. So, are you seeing things in those extremes? Something is either completely right or completely wrong. Like it's only right to do homeschooling or it's only wrong to do homeschooling. Now, this makes it really difficult to find that balance and to understand that life often exists in those shades of gray. And I know we don't like hearing that. It's a very uncomfortable space to be, but this is black and white thinking. And that goes hand in hand with that mental rigidity. Another thing that we often do with that mental rigidity or that mental inflexibility is we avoid those things that we don't want to face, like any other possibilities other than just what we want. Again, going back to my daughter. Okay, I know you want to do all of the things in school right now with this big trip and getting this car and paying for college and all of these things. But let's break that down. Let's talk about what's realistic. Let's get intentional about those numbers. Maybe you can do all those things, but right now we just have question marks. So let's explore this a little more flexibly. The impact of mental inflexibility is an increase in disorders, especially things like anxiety and depression. So if you're experiencing anxiety and depression, it's important to keep that in mind. Is this coming because I am being too rigid? I'm being too inflexible? I'm having conflicting values and I'm choosing the one that is causing me to live less congruently with who I want to be, with who I am? Like, again, back to my own example, I really want to deliver to my team. I care about them so much and I'm so grateful for what they've done for me. And is that the expense of spending time being present with my daughter in her last year at home, where I'm going to be so busy with the business all year and then the rest of my life potentially regret that I didn't capitalize on my last year with her because of my goals for my team, my goals for my audience, for being the best content creator and information deliverer. That's not a very great title, but out there, like they are both worthy goals. And which one will help me be my greater self? Which one will help me live more in alignment with who I am meant to be? And that doesn't mean necessarily abandoning my goals and my commitments, but reevaluating them and having those conversations. And maybe that example doesn't completely resonate with you, but maybe it's something else. Like maybe that homeschooling story does. And remember, because of this rigidity, and again, I don't care if you do homeschooling or don't do homeschooling, but does it lead to burnout and family tension, maybe even suicidal ideation or depression, or you're a struggling marriage or struggling in your parenting and connecting to your kids? And if the answer is yes, then that's an opportunity to reassess. And I'm going to break those down into steps so you can clearly understand how you can do that. But first, I want to go back to that values part. So that rigid adherence to one value often conflicts with other important values. So again, think about those values. Which one is most important to you? And not that you have to completely abandon the other one, like I said, but explore how you can be true to maybe both of them or let go a little bit with one for now. For me, that could look like having a direct conversation with some of my team members and being like, hey, this is what my schedule is looking like. This is how hard I've been working. This is how important it is to me to deliver to you and to honor the commitments that I made. And this is affecting my home life. Can we collaborate for a minute about what would be a win for both of us and how this could be more realistic for you and for me and for the team? And just have a conversation instead of feeling like that can't happen. Albert Einstein said this: the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. That kind of stings a little bit, right? Like, how intelligent are you? How flexible are you? And if you're not, then lean into that feeling for a second and recognize I have the ability to change. Again, going back to my example, I can either strive to be the best boss or I can recognize that conflicts with being present for my family, especially in such an important last year of my daughter's senior year. So reassessing that. And again, I hope you always apply this to your own experiences right now and what values might be competing or conflicting with each other. Now, I want to just very briefly break this down for you on what you can do into simple steps. So the first one really does start often small and simple things, reflecting and journaling. So identify those areas where that rigidity causes harm in your life. life. Likely somebody else has told you about it first, like maybe you're not as open and receptive to it. Like in the case of homeschooling and medication, often those clients do not even want to go there. So I have to be very careful and honor their timing because otherwise they're just going to shut down. So hopefully you can be open and receptive and you're ready to hear those things right now. It's often those subjects that you are really prickly about if your spouse or best friend brings up or a family member. So explore those things. Identify those areas that are causing that harm and list your personal values and then prioritize them. Like at the top of mine is faith and family, and underneath those are the other ones. But often lately, because of the shift in my work schedule, I've noticed that work and my work ethic and my team and some of those values that go along with that have been swapped. And that is not what brings me joy and greater fulfillment. So explore your own there. So number 2 goes back to exploration. So it's tied in the same one. Examine the conflicts that happen between those values and determine which values take more precedence, maybe over the other one, and write that out or even do a voice memo and just talk into your phone and explore it, whatever works better for you. The third one is take time for consideration. Allow time to process those things without that immediate pressure to change. So this could even look like mindfulness to increase awareness. I know I was so overwhelmed the other day, but I went on a walk and it's amazing the kind of clarity that came just from stopping for a little bit, like the epiphanies I had when I just took that time. The next one is very important as well, and important that you do the right ones. And what I mean by that is consultation with mentors. So seek advice from those trusted mentors or even professionals. If you have a counselor, if you have someone else that you pay to help you with advice, but these are specifically people that you trust and that will help you see those cognitive distortions or the lies that we tell ourselves, or help us see things from a new perspective and let go. One of my clients, and again, there's so many with this particular topic, but the one about medication, I thought that she would not be very receptive to it. And I always bring it up very carefully because I know we all have very different views on this and I don't want to interfere with their own values either. But she was in a spot where she was willing to hear it. And we'd been working through this for months and months. And she finally recognized that it was really impacting her mental health and her family life and the things that she valued even more. So she consulted with her doctor. They made a plan together and ultimately she made her own decision what to do. And she's feeling so good. But again, this is after we've tried all those other things. It's not that she just immediately jumped ship to something that she didn't value and then resentfully did something, but she explored it on her own. She met with mentors. She reflected on it. She did those other things first. So it's not like you have to quickly jump to that. Okay, only 2 more steps. The next one is planning and implementation. So that's designing a very specific plan that aligns with your prioritized values and then set realistic, achievable goals for increased flexibility. So you have to set those SMART goals that align with those values and that have that flexibility in there. That alone will improve your mental health. And then the last part is a key part that a lot of people skip, and that is taking ownership and making proper apologies. If you just do a search for fulfillment therapy and apologies, it'll pop up some of the episodes that I've done. I've done one specifically on the steps of apology, and we mix up a lot of those and we don't do all of them, but there's very specific steps that you want to take when you are apologizing and when you're trying to make things right. So take responsibility for those past rigid behaviors, or maybe even right now you're still doing them. So that's me making things right to my kids and my spouse for being distracted and placing certain values above my top values and being vulnerable and raw and open and showing that I'm giving myself grace and self-compassion because we are modeling how they can treat themselves, right? That is very difficult, but it's so important because they need to know that it's okay to be human and it's okay to say sorry and move forward and switch that sometimes, or maybe all the time. I love this quote by Eleanor Brown, and I may have shared it before, but she said, "Self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel." And this ties to that flexibility. Like so often in this, we are running on fumes and we are just exhausted because we are putting some other priority higher on our list that's making us unwell and our families unwell. So just recapping, that psychological flexibility really will improve your mental health and those family dynamics. Embracing change and flexibility is a strength. It is so beautiful. I know if you talk to your spouse or your family members about how you are trying to reevaluate things and look at things from a different perspective on something that you might have been really rigid about, they'll probably cry tears of joy and thank you for being open and willing to see things from a different lens to improve your family life, willing to be wrong and willing to readjust, willing to be intelligent, even like Albert Einstein said. Remember, my friends, change is this gradual process and it requires patience and self-compassion. Flexibility allows us to improve our life and our fulfillment, and it drastically improves our quality of life. Again, not just for us, but for our family members. So best of luck to you, friends, in practicing this flexibility of letting go of that rigid thinking that does not serve anyone. And as a last quick thought today, my friend, if you're interested in being an intern, check out fulfillmenttherapy.org or check out our new blog on fulfillmenttherapy.org. We have so many awesome platforms that we're on now, and we're also going to be creating YouTube videos, even more, not just the audio part of it, on YouTube. So check that out in the future, and we'll see you back here so soon, my friend. Take care. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.